You know, I did write up notes for me to follow to record this a couple days ago. I've completely lost those notes. They're probably on the floor of my car. Hello everybody! Welcome back to the second episode of the Read Your Knitting podcast. Are you proud of me? I remembered the name of my podcast. I didn't last week. Well, at the end of my episode. I'm Sarah. I'm your host. I live in South Texas where it's normally too hot to wear any knitwear, but I love knitting anyways, so I just like grin and bear it and sweat it out. I'm glad you're here with me today. Last week I totally forgot to say that I have other social medias. If you want to go follow me on Instagram, that's where I'm most active, and on Ravelry, I'm pretty active over there too. My screen names are going to be in the box below. I'll remember to put them there because they are different, so we'll figure that out. I guess we'll just get into it. The first little section of my podcast, I said I was going to wear one of my FOs of, you know, the last few years every episode, and today I'm wearing my Zweig sweater by Caitlyn Hunter. I knit this out of, oh boy, I knit it out of Black Sheep Dye Works. I couldn't tell you the colorway names right now, but that'll all be in the Ravelry project page description, which I did link that last time for all my projects. So that's another way you can find my Ravelry. I linked to all my project pages for you guys so you can see what yarns I used and maybe even what needle size I used, although that's all relative. But yeah, this was my first sweater I ever made. I would say I was a little bit ambitious. A little bit, but I really love it. It's kind of got like a little bit modern, a little bit cozy feel. I had to change up the sleeves because the sleeves that she wrote in the pattern just didn't work with my arm shape. Like, it ended up being, I think they were like a really long cuff, and because I'm a bigger girl and I have thicker arms, that didn't work for me. So I had to change it to more of a sweatshirt type sleeve, which I think is kind of cute and kind of, I don't know, old-fashioned classy. I like it a lot. And you know, I don't wear the sweater as much as I wear some of my other ones. Most of the other ones I've made 4 sweaters to date that I've finished. 2 of them have short sleeves, and I wear those ones a lot more because you can wear that when it's, you know, 65 degrees outside, because that's kind of the coldest. Today it's like 42 degrees outside, so I'm wearing my long sleeves. But most of the time it only gets cold enough here to kind of justify wearing a short sleeve sweater with a jacket on top maybe. There's that, but I really love this one. This sweater's always going to have a special place in my heart because it was the first one, and Caitlyn Hunter's patterns are something you're going to see recurring as far as sweaters go for me because I just love them so much. And I'm looking forward to knitting a couple more of them. They're on my queue on Ravelry, so we'll get to those at some point in the future. But in that 2 weeks, I didn't finish anything. So, well, so you don't got any finished objects. Let's go ahead and get into my WIPs. I did get a chance to work on my Wool and Honey sweater. I've got it in my Ritual Dice backpack that I love. It's got my Shelly Can pins and a couple of other ones. My Slytherin badge. Proud Slytherin. I love this bag. Mine doesn't stand up the way some other people's do, and it's not a fault of the bag. It's probably me just using it too roughly, putting too much stuff in it, putting too many pins on it so that it falls forward. So mine doesn't stand up straight like some people's do. Mine's a little droopy, but I still love it. I use this one like all the time if I'm carrying something bigger with me. But here's where I'm at on my Wool and Honey. I'm making it pretty severely cropped. I mean, you might be able to see compared to this sweater I'm wearing, it's fairly cropped. And it looks cropped when it's on, especially with my body inside of it. It's pretty short. I'm on my sleeve. Come on, yarn. I'm working on my sleeve right now. Sleeves are a labor of love. I don't know why they take so long. I couldn't tell you, but they're a labor of love. and the only reason I'm working on them is because I really want to wear this sweater at some point this year, even if it's in like November or December of this year. Because, but I do want to finish this soon so that it's off my needles and I can cast on another sweater. So I did cast on 2 new items this week, and I didn't touch my Lottie sweater or Lottie cardigan that I showed you last week. I just wasn't feeling it, and when you're working 2 projects in the same base, sometimes you just need a different fiber in your hands. So I did cast on 2 new projects. This one is on my 2019 Make 9. It's the Oslo hat by PetiteKnit, and right now it's just a stockinette tube. I'm coming up on the point where I switch to where I start knitting it inside out, I guess. So when I get to that point, I don't know, you'll probably already know the construction of the Oslo hat. It's a very popular hat to knit. I'm knitting it out of Knit Picks Stroll. I think their basic sock base is called Stroll. It's double-stranded, and I think it's great. It's a great, you know, alternative. This hat is knit, or the pattern was written with kind of a store, I think it's kind of a store brand yarn. I couldn't pronounce it if I wanted to, but it's a Swedish or a Danish brand, I think, and you can't get it here in the United States because it is pretty affordable, I think, but I just couldn't get my hands on it, and I really wanted to make this hat, so I went ahead and went with the Knit Picks, and I think it's working up pretty good. I think it's going to be a nice hat. Maybe I'll get to wear it sooner or later. My second cast on for this week. I've been wanting to cast on something like this for a long time, and this week I watched the Christy Glass interview with Skeinanigans, and I had never heard of her before. I don't think she's like a big time designer, but I did see her Northeasterly, and it made me want to cast one on. So I went ahead and cast this on Wednesday night. If you want to see it, I've got some of my scrap yarns leftovers from past projects. This one is spun right round in their Reaper color. I don't know if that's the correct. I think it has the word Reaper in it. This second one is Malabrigo Machida, and again, I used this in another shawl that I finished a couple months ago. I mean, these are all fingering weight. I'm gonna try to stick to single ply yarns, but we'll see. And this third one is Madeline Tosh in Tosh Merino Light. I guess that's what their single ply is called. And this is the high-low colorway. I remember that because, or the high-low optic. I'm not sure. On the tag it says high-low, but I think it's called high-low optic. Yeah, I think this one was in that What the Fade that I was wearing last week. This one I said it was something I finished a couple months ago. It's the Marvelous Shawl by Knit Graffiti. I'll be sure to show you that sometime soon. And then this third one is a scrap from my Find Your Fade shawl, which again, I'll show you all that in the future. But right now they're making a really cute little Northeasterly bookmark, really. Northeasterly blanket, but it's looking like a bookmark right now, so we'll see. I did have to frog it already once, which was kind of a mess. Somehow I messed up this pattern. It's a $5 pattern on Ravelry, and somehow, I don't know if I cast on the wrong amount of stitches or if I did a decrease on the wrong side multiple times, but I ended up with the 2 stitches short on one side and 1 stitch short on the other, and I was just like, how did I do that? So I went ahead and ripped the whole thing out. I had finished what I was going to finish with this pink color, which I'm doing 15 and 10, 15 and 10, I guess repeats of the row pattern. It's a 2-row repeat, So I guess 30 rows, 20 rows, 30 rows, 20 rows in pattern. And I think I'll switch it up for the other stripes. But I had finished what I was going to do with this pink, and then I was trying to add the next color, which is going to be this yellow, also from the What the Fade, also spun right round. I couldn't tell you the color. I'll link it below. Yeah, I tried to cast it on, and I was like, this isn't working out right. The number's not working. It doesn't look like the bottom. But then I looked at my work closer, and the middle was just, like, I was folding it in half, and the middle wasn't laying in the middle. So I decided I just needed to rip the whole thing out. Maybe I cast on the wrong amount of stitches. I don't know. But it's not that many stitches, so it probably shouldn't have been that big a deal. I don't know what I did. But here we are on that. Hopefully it turns into a blanket one day, or it's just something to use my scraps on, and an easy pattern maybe if I figure out how to not make increases on the wrong side. I think it's interesting that it's a blanket pattern, and I know all of these little scrappy blankets, they're a thing, and I don't know if it's ever gonna actually look like a blanket. I just don't know if, one, I have enough scraps for that. I'm gonna end up having to repeat colors probably a lot. I don't know. Maybe it'll be a little blanket and I'll hold on to it. But I think if it's a little blanket, also known as a baby blanket, I don't want to give it to a baby because it's my fancy yarn scraps, and I don't want it to get like barf and poo and stuff on it. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. So that's what I had as far as my whips, my cast-ons. What was I going to talk about next? Oh, I forgot to tell you what bag this was in, and this one. This bag is by Amaya Papaya Shop. I'm not totally sure where she's from. I bought this a couple of years ago, maybe not a couple of years ago, like a year ago probably. I thought the bag was going to be bigger, quite frankly, but it's cute and it's big enough for a hat project, and I like being able to just toss it into my purse, so that's a good one. And this one I just bought a couple weeks ago. It took a while to get through customs because I bought it from Tiny Human Knits, and she's based out of Canada. But it's a cute little bag. She was having a sale. I think she said that her sister's husband, her brother-in-law, was in a car accident with kids, and that they were fine, but they needed a new car, and she got to my heart, you know. I decided, you know, I'm gonna buy something from her. And then I saw this, and it's got the word Faust all over it. And the first aria I ever sang in college was from Faust. It was the mezzo-soprano aria. I can't even remember the name of it now, but I saw it and I was like, it's meant to be. I'm supposed to have that. And I think these are like ads for maybe a cigarette company, which is not what I'm about, but because the word Faust is on it, I'm gonna keep it. You know, it's mine. It's mine and it's special. Okay, the next thing I wanted to share with you was a little bit of dream knitting, because my last episode was pretty short, so I was trying to think of like stuff that I could talk about. And I do have a lot of yarn that I kind of have plans for, not on my Make 9, but it, you know, it's coming. And I should share with y'all a little bit of my Make 9 too, but maybe not today. I'm going to talk about this yarn that I got in Montgomery, Texas at the Modern Skein. You can see that. I bought these 4 skeins. I was being a little bit selfish. I was there at the store. Oops, I dropped one. I was there at the store, and it was my first time going there in person. I've ordered stuff from them online before, and I always have a pretty good experience with them online. And I had a great experience going in, and I was looking at all their chink fibers, and it's so beautiful. And I couldn't stop myself, even though I think $34 for a skein of fingering weight yarn is a little pricey. I do understand that it's from Europe, and they're just so beautiful. And the project I kind of talked myself into, I guess. I was like trying to figure out whether I wanted to buy 4 skeins of yarn or not, because I bought a lot of yarn. It was expensive and I bought a lot of yarn. So I told myself I'm gonna make a carnival shawl, which is a 4 skein shawl. It's a rectangular wrap. But I brought it home and I've been looking at this yarn and I love all of them so much. And I've also had the Caitlyn Hunter cowl, the one with the color work, the stripes, and I think these two together would make such a beautiful cowl right here. Oh, what's it called? I'll have to put it in the down bar, or maybe if I can figure out how to put text on the screen, I'll put it there. But I figured those would make a really beautiful cowl, so maybe I'll try to do that. And then these two. Or if I want to do these three, I could do a three color shawl. So these are going to become a shawl someday, or a neckwear piece someday. I don't know what yet though. And those two are kind of the top contenders. The Carnival and the Glacier Park. I remembered it, pulled it out of my brain. Are you proud of me? Those are kind of the top 2 contenders for this particular yarn. They're just so pretty. And I couldn't stop myself. So that's kind of what I've been dreaming about. This probably isn't going to get used for a little while because I do have a Make 9 that I'm trying to stick to this year. And I'm pretty excited about some of the other stuff that's on my Make 9, obviously, because I already have yarn for those things. And I was already planning those things when I bought this. So I'm going to try to stick to that as much as possible. But if I do something big like finish my sleeves on that sweater, maybe I'll cast on something that's not on my Make 9, but also those 2 patterns aren't anything new. If something new comes out, maybe I'll be inclined to cast on with these, and that'll be okay, because it's okay to cast new things on, especially when you've been doing a good job of binding things off. I mean, last week, not this week. I didn't bind anything off this week, but I've been working on my sweater a lot, and that's kind of it. You know, I've been working on that sweater a lot, and finishing the body was kind of a slow trudge, and honestly, I was coming to the end of my skein at the body, and I didn't want to add another one, so I just left it pretty cropped. Which is okay, which is kind of how I want it. Not kind of, it's exactly how I want it. It's just getting through those sleeves is going to be a testament of love for knitting. Because garter in the round is not my favorite. It's just not. Even though I like purling, it's just not my favorite. What else do I have to talk about? I guess we can just jump right into the reading portion of this podcast. I did finish that audiobook I was listening to, Kingdom of Copper. I am shook completely to my core. If you haven't read Shannon, or on her books it's S.A. Chakraborty, if you haven't read the first 2 books of the David trilogy, I would say run to your bookstore or run to your Audible app and pick them up, because they are so good. They're so good, and I don't think enough people are talking about it, and I really need someone to talk to about it, because I just love it. I just love it, and I want to talk about it, and there's no one to talk about it, and I don't want to spoil it, but she just ripped my heart out and left it on the ground in the sand. You know? She just left it. She just left it there. She left me without a heart. And I'm just like worried about the next one. You know, I'm worried about my characters. Hopefully we get the 3rd book next year. I mean, the last 2 have come out in the last 2 years, right? One came out in 2018. One came out in 2019. So if she doesn't put it out next year, I'm gonna have some issues. But I really, really, really loved it. I cried a lot. I tend to listen to something, especially I work in insurance and I do a lot of like calculating insurance premiums and stuff like that. It's a lot of math, and I tend to need something in my ear because I'm a creative person. I need to be engaged by something else, and I can zip through work like nothing. So I tend to put on an audiobook, something like low stakes. But when this started getting high stakes and I was like almost crying at work, I was like, it's 4:30, I have to go. Sorry, I can't stay. I need to go home now. I went in my car and I cried. I was just a mess. It's so good, and oh guys, y'all need to read it. What else have I been reading? I started reading Valiant. I'm only a couple chapters in. I was surprised that it's not the same characters from Tithe. I thought because it was a trilogy that it would have the same characters. So I didn't get into it, and I haven't touched it in 3 or 4 days. I only read the first, I think I read the prologue in the first chapter. So I am gonna read it because I think I bought the books, I'm gonna read them, right? But I was a little disappointed that it wasn't my same characters, and maybe they interact with those characters, and I'll be happy about that if they do. But we get in there on that Holly Black book. I won a giveaway. Grace of the PetiteKnit podcast, she was doing a giveaway on her podcast of some books. I can't remember the author's name, and I should, because I was emailing her about my email address and stuff and where to send my ebook that I won. But I have another book on the reading list, and apparently it has something to do with knitting, maybe? I don't know. But I'm excited to get into that. I've never heard of her as an author. I've never read any of her books, so we'll see how that goes. I want to say it's at the top of my reading list, but I have such a long TBR, and there's so many books that are coming out this year that are part of series. We'll see. We'll see when I get to it. I want to help support her, and she did email me asking me to write a review for her, so I want to be able to do that for her. We'll see. We'll see if I get to it. I want to, but I'm so distracted by other things, you know. But happy to have it. It's an ebook. It's Kindle, which is not the provider that I normally use for my ebooks. I normally use Nook because that's what I've always been using for ebooks. So yeah, I have it, and it's on the TBR. We'll get there. Guys, my camera cuts off at 29 minutes. I didn't know it did that. It's been like 4 hours since I last recorded. When I was recording last, I was trying to rush through the end so I can get my butt to work. I work for a church. I work for a church sometimes. One of my jobs. I sing at a church. So I had to get out the door, and I wasn't really paying attention, and the camera cut off. So I was in the middle of talking about my reading. I think I was just about to talk about the Ember in the Ashes and Ember in the Ashes. I'm listening to this on Audible, the audiobook version of this. I'm only like 2 chapters in, so we'll see. I'm really still getting the exposition of this book, but so far so good. What else did because I've already said this one, what else did I have to say? Just that I'm excited to read one of her books. I've been following this author on Twitter for probably like 2 years now. So I've always been interested in reading her books for whatever reason. I buy them, I put them on the shelf, and then I don't read them. But I started listening to it, so it's the one I'm listening to right now. I also started listening to I Hate Everyone But You by Gaby, Dunn, and Alyson, Raskin. But I think I'm gonna go get a paper copy of that one to read it, because it's written as like a series of text messages and emails, and don't really think I'm grasping it well enough over audio. When I read books like that, I like to have the paper copy because I think it translates better. I think it translates better for me. I don't know. But it's a good audiobook, and the authors read it, and I love the authors. I've been watching them on YouTube for forever, but I think I need to read that one. I don't think that audio is the way to go. While I love their voices, I don't think I'm grasping the concept well enough, so I put that one down and I picked up Ember in the Ashes. So that's kind of what I'm reading right now. I think I got through the rest of what I was reading. I don't know if I said that I won a contest. I won a contest. I won a giveaway from the PetiteKnit podcast with Grace. She had an author. She calls her Diane Prokop? Prokop? I was emailing her, so I should remember her name, but I don't. But I won a book from her, and I have it sitting in my queue. It's on my TBR, so I'll be sure to read that one in the coming months, I'm sure. It's an ebook, so I'll probably be able to get through it, reading and knitting or whatever. So I'll be sure to share my thoughts on that when I'm done. She did ask me to write a review when I'm done, so maybe you'll see my name next to the Amazon listing for this ebook. But Grace had said that her books normally have like something to do with knitting, so I'm excited to get to reading that. And I mean, I've never heard of her before, so she's a new to me author. So I'm looking forward to reading that. Ooh, what else did I say in my reading section? Just that I was listening to that audiobook? Oh, I don't know. I did finish Kingdom of Copper. I think I did go through my feels on Kingdom of Copper already. I'm sure you've already heard them, but I'm dying still. Just continually. I'm going to be dying until that next book comes out. I think it's called Kingdom of Gold? Empire of Gold. Ooh, Kingdom of Copper, then Empire of Gold. So I'm looking forward to being further hurt, further beat to a pulp with this series. Shannon Chakraborty, she just really has opened my eyes to that style of book. I mean, I just don't know, and I don't know, I guess I just haven't been reading very diverse books since I was a kid. I don't know, it just feels like sometimes I pick up a book by a diverse author and I'm like, you've opened my eyes. And I know I've read other diverse books, but I need to read more diverse books because, and here's another one on my diversity list. You know, I read a lot of Sarah J. Maas and Cassandra Clare and all the big names, but I do need to read more diverse books, and they're great. I don't know why I don't. So, I really need to find more books written by people of Mexican American descent and general Latino Hispanic descent. I would love to read some high fantasy set in, you know, in my own culture. That would be great. Because I've read so much high fantasy and I love it. You know, I love reading, I love me some fairies, right? You know, I love me some fairy tales, scary fairy tales, high epic kind of stuff. But man, I want that in my own culture because I mean, I love reading about Indian culture, and you know, Sarah J. Maas does a great job at building her world, but you know, it's still white people fairies? I don't know, just general high fantasy tends to be very white. And not that there's anything wrong with that, because, you know, look at me, I'm a white lady of Mexican American descent. So, I just think it would be cool to read some more stuff, you know, of my own culture. So if you have any recommendations, I'd love to hear them. Ooh, news on the dyeing front. So I guess this is kind of out of book talk back into knitting world stuff. I did get the go-ahead from my parents to dye yarn in their laundry room. I have to be very careful not to stain the granite countertop in there, but they've given me the go-ahead that I can start dyeing in there. So once I have all the stuff, I still have some stuff to get. I have some small pots that I bought on clearance. They're not big enough to really dye a batch of yarn in, but for like mini skeins, which is what I'm gonna start off dyeing, I think. Mini skeins and stuff, I think they'll be fine for that. And I have some yarn, just some bare yarn from Knit Picks, because as y'all know, I love a good Knit Picks. But I think for practicing and for starting out for myself, I think that's kind of the way to go. Eventually, if I get good at it, granted, hopefully I can get on with a wholesaler and all of that. But for right now, I'm probably going to stick to like mini skeins and maybe single skeins as far as dyeing goes. So the little pots should be okay. Maybe for a whole skein I might need to get a slightly bigger pot. But I have some dyes. They're greener shades dyes also. I think I said I got them off of Knit Picks, and they're very small amounts. So I'll probably want to invest in some more dyes here once I use those up. But what else do I need? Really the two big things that on my list that I need are a hot plate and a respirator mask, because you know your girl's gonna want to do some speckling. I love a good speckle, so yeah, that's kind of where I am on that front. I'm excited to kind of get my feet wet and try something new. Yeah, so that's all from me today. I hope y'all had a great couple weeks. I will see y'all in a couple weeks. Hopefully this kind of looks like the same framing that I had before, and it doesn't look totally different. The lighting for sure looks different because it's dark outside, but I don't know, I kind of look washed out all of the time. It's because there's a light right above me, but I can't change where the lights are in my room. If I don't have these lights on, I'm sitting in the dark. So if y'all have any advice on that, especially if you have a Nikon Coolpix camera, I could use your advice on how to not be so washed out. I mean, I know I'm a light-skinned kind of girl, but like, I put bronzer on, for goodness sake. So I'm trying. We'll see. I will see y'all next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Read Your Knitting podcast. Goodbye.